Good morning, everybody. Welcome. So nice to be with you today. I hope you're doing well. We all have problems, right? Everybody has problems. If you're the most successful, literally the most successful, with tremendous wealth and popularity, you still have problems. And so, as we're trying to deal with a problem, the weight loss problem, right, which is something that is such a struggle for so many, something that we are trying to move thoughtfully and gently toward, thoughtfully and gently. But as I say that, with a mindset of flowing water, right? I was thinking about when I was out west in these canyons. It's like the river. It's just a gentle flow, but it carves through the stone, right? So powerful. Thoughtfully, gently, powerfully moving toward a weight loss problem. That's fasting to me, okay? So sometimes we can take perspective that we learn from one situation and apply it somewhere else. I was thinking about this week. I think I've mentioned on the channel before, I generally advise people, don't get too wrapped up in the news, and if you're trying to move in a healthy place, like trying to cut out, distractions and toxic things. I tend to be in a zone lately of just let the news come to me. I'm not seeking it out. But one fun piece of news that came to me this week, maybe you think it's fun. I heard it from so many people. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce getting engaged. And so here's a light piece of news to think about. Are you someone who likes Taylor Swift and her music? Okay, I'll just be honest. I don't know anything about it. I mean, I know that she has existed and is super popular. I just never listened to it. So I was thinking, well, I've had like 7 friends tell me this, and I'm like, well, what is some Taylor Swift? And so I typed in to a search engine, what is the most interesting Taylor Swift song? And then I just brought up the lyrics. And I thought it was very interesting to think about in the context of what we're trying to do here. So I thought I'd share a few of the lyrics with you. This song is called Anti-Hero. Now, after I read these lyrics, I started reading. I was like, oh, I don't even know who this person is. Like, why did she write this? And okay, this is what I'm saying. Someone incredibly wealthy and popular, still go through some dark experiences. And here's what she says. I have this thing where I get older but never wiser. Midnights become my afternoons when my depression works the graveyard shift and all the people I've ghosted stand there in the room. I should not be left to my own devices. They come with prices and vices. I end up in crisis. Wake up screaming from dreaming. One day I'll watch as you're leaving because you got tired of my scheming. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. At tea time, everyone agrees. I'll stare directly at the sun, but never in the mirror. Must be exhausting always rooting for the anti-hero. This song kind of goes on and on for quite a while, but I thought I'd just focus on these lyrics because as I read through them, I thought, here's someone who's really wrestling with some darkness and difficulty and struggle. And I think there's some things that, we can definitely, a lot of people could relate to things like this. The line that I thought hit me the most was just this second to last one there. I'll stare directly at the sun, but never in the mirror. damage my own eyesight, blind myself before I actually address the truth, the honesty, the reality. To me, as I was reading about this song, I read a few different people's opinion. People interpret, the thing in their own way. To me, I think that concept is really powerful, actually, and it's something that's so common. We tend to rationalize things, right? We tend to live in denial when we have a problem. This is like staring directly at the sun. We'll go through pain. We'll even harm ourselves to avoid looking at the simple reality, right? A mirror is a simple reality. We can look at it and see truth in it. A mirror can't lie, right? Do you ever do something as crazy as looking at the sun to avoid looking in the mirror? So to me, what these lyrics are about is about, in the midst of darkness and depression, of like actually looking in the mirror. Like this song is about like actually trying to look at the part of a difficult situation that is actually like where we are the problem. This is a thing that is really difficult to do. And this is what I was saying at the beginning. Okay, here is someone who's dealing with something totally different, like whatever she was dealing with in her life at that time. It's not a weight problem, right? But this sort of concept, right? Looking in the mirror, avoid blinding ourselves, and then trying to take ownership of the situation to the extent that we can, right? Can we be honest with ourselves about it? So as I was reading through this, I thought, well, I was reminded of a book I read once, and I have it on my shelf somewhere, and I didn't find it. I probably do a whole session on it. It's called Leadership and Self-Deception. I must have read it 15 years ago, and I didn't read anything about it again. I can only remember one thing about the book that I read back at that time, but it was kind of dialing me in with this, which was like, true leadership owns problems, okay? You can't, if you are really taking leadership, this I think what the book is saying, my memory from then, okay? If you're really gonna take leadership in a problem, like you have to own it, you have to take responsibility for it. And I think they have an example in there of like someone is having an argument with their spouse, and how common it is just to blame that person, especially if, they really are wrong, And it's like the book is just showing, and it goes through these cycles, like, even if it's true, even if the other person is wrong, right? Hammering them into the ground isn't gonna fix your problem, right? Like, you have to at least own your portion of it if you want to heal and solve that situation in a healthy way. So taking a space like this to say, hi, it's me, I'm the problem. How do you move toward that space in a truthful, honest, but kind, gentle, and thoughtful way? It's not going to do you any good to be in a space and just beat yourself up, right? So I super don't. That's not the idea of it. That's where a song like that, where the struggle is, because it's like if you're dealing with depression, discouragement, all these sorts of things, you can pile on yourself in a huge way, and we certainly don't want to do that. Yet in the midst of like a difficult situation, like if to get out of it, you also have to be honest. And so this is where I want to kind of go into this session today. How do those lyrics hit you, right? In struggles that you have in your life, whether it's a health issue or anything, what is the big struggle, right? Are there areas where you're looking into the sun, where you should be looking into a mirror? Another book I referenced on the channel once, what was it? The Obstacle is the Way. I talked through that one while I was hiking up the mountain in Yellowstone about moving directly toward obstacles, right? We spend so much time trying to dodge, walk around. We'll walk 100 miles around so we don't have to climb up the mountain. So looking in the mirror, right? Stop looking at the sun and blinding ourselves. Look in the mirror. Look at the truth. Look at the reality. That's like walking right up the mountain, heading directly at the problem. So I had a very interesting personal experience this week of doing that. If you were with me live last week, you, especially toward the end of the session, my internet went out, kind of but mostly out, not 100%, but it kind of froze for a couple minutes, and very frustrating for me because I'm paying for premium internet. I'm trying to do as good a job as I can in providing this session for you, and so to have it go out, okay, very frustrating. It feels embarrassing for me. I said, it's not what I'm trying to do. And so I realized that this wasn't actually the first time that happened. So this had happened a month ago. I had kind of a freeze thing where it cut off. And then I've had other patches where I've looked through where I was like, oh, the connection is kind of, it's not perfect. It kind of mini freezes for a while. And so I realized, oh, I've gone through these same sort of cycles with this issue is a model of what we're trying to say, where I was looking at the sun, right? And so the first one is denial. And I realized these other times that it happened, I mean, say this is a simple illustration, but I just denied that there was a problem. I was I'm paying for premium internet, it has to be fine. When it was the facts are the connection wasn't working, you know what I mean? And so I was that's kind of, I was kind of reverse engineering, my thinking. I was that's kind of bad thought process. There clearly was an issue with it. I didn't do anything to address it. I just hoped that it would not happen again, kind of denial. So that's something to look out for in your life. Is there an issue you're trying to move toward and you see red flags waving, and then is you're in total denial about it? It's very common. Actually, as I've been thinking about it this week, I found 3 other places where problems were happening, and I was in denial about it. Okay, so I have an internet problem. I have a connection problem. I'm in denial, okay? But then it kind of flares up. And the second way we might approach a problem, just a generic problem, anything, we certainly can do it with a health issue, a weight issue, right? Is to rationalize it. And so then I realize, okay, I rationalize this. I remember having a thought, after the connection was out, I was well, this is just the sort of thing that happens. Right? That's a rationalization thought. Still, I wasn't taking action. I wasn't moving toward it. I kind of got out of denial. I was no, this kind of is a thing. But then I'm oh, this is just the type of thing that happens, right? Do you ever say something like this? This is just what happens to people in these situations, whatever it is. Keeps you from looking in the mirror, right? From honestly assessing the situation. So I went through each of those with my connection. And then once I finally realized, I was no, you know what? I'm paying money to have a great connection. It shouldn't be just freezing out in the middle of these things. Then I fell into the third trap or the third unhelpful process, which is just to blame somebody else for it. Instead of truly owning the problem, taking responsibility for it and moving toward it and fixing it, right? So I just never did the thought come to me, like, you're doing something wrong, right? Like, you've screwed up, you have this problem, like, that you need to fix. I was like, it's obviously this internet company. I'm paying someone to provide internet, right? This is their fault. I got on the phone. I mean, I'm a pretty nice person, but I'm like, you've got to fix this, Like, what are you doing to me? I'm trying to, like, run a live show. Like, you're killing me. I'm like, well, like, let's run some tests. I remember they said that, like, let's try to figure this out. Then I'm like, I was like, well, that sounds logical. All of a sudden, like, the thing is, like, hitting. I'm like, oh, I'm like a doctor. Like, people come in, they tell me what's going on. They're like, oh, I have this symptom. I'm like, well, like, let's run some tests. Like, let's figure stuff out, And I'm thinking, like, man, like, I should have thought of that, I don't, like, think of the internet like, oh, we should test it. They start testing out the stuff. I don't know what all they do. Send stuff, signals to the system. They're like, nobody in your area is having any troubles. No, everything is fine. They're like, maybe we need to, like, look at some other stuff. Long story short, they send the modem and the stuff, but then I've got the router, and they're like, they figured out, they're like, oh, your router is, like, dying. It's you, right? You are the problem here, basically, is what they're saying. And I'm like, like, ouch, Like, then I start to see all the thought process. I'm like, oh, I'm, like, in denial. I'm rationalizing all these things not normal. I'm blaming these people like it's their fault, when all the time, like, my stuff is, like, not in order, right? So this sort of thing with any type of problem are the cycles that people go through with any type of problem: denial, rationalization, blaming. And so as we try to take these sort of ideas, right? Taylor's depression anthem, an experience that we have where, can you identify things like that in your life where you have acted that way and thought that way and denied and rationalized and blamed, Take those concepts from anywhere in your life, bring them to the problem that you're trying to solve right in this moment is a really healthy, positive, honest thing to do. Stop looking at the sun and look in the mirror and just say, what is the truth about this situation? What is the honest reality? Because we all have stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves, right? Like, we all have concepts of what is happening in our life that are built up, and some of it is things that we develop, and some of it is what the culture is telling us, and it all gets mixed into this big story where I say, like, I am this way, right? You say, this is how we end up living in so much denial, is we, like, build up these stories to try to explain what is happening, but the story isn't really real. The story is kind of made up based on different inputs we have. And that's part of what's hard, is to look in the mirror, because sometimes you look in the mirror, and I'm meaning, like, the metaphorical mirror, really, as to, like, does this story actually stand up anymore? Like, what is actually true here? And if we want to move forward and, like, away from some sort of problem or process, like, what would be the steps to actually do that? How do you own the situation? Means, like, rewriting the story. Like, if you were to write a new story now, or you were to take your life right now as, like, a blank page and say, forget all this ideas about what's happened and choices I'm making and how does it go, and say, this is like a new day. We're moving in a new direction. How would you write the story going forward? What would be the lines that you would write, that you would tell yourself about what's true? Like if you were really in charge, think of it this way. If you were, which of course you are, if you were really in charge of your own life and you could actually just write the story, like writing a book, and you were in the chapter where the hero of the story, or we could call it the anti-hero. Anti-hero is just a flawed, protagonist, right? Which we all are. That's our story, right? We are all fallible people trying to make our best way through life, right? So how would we take our anti-hero? What would they do to move forward powerfully and thoughtfully? I think that one of the big barriers in doing that, as I was thinking about it this week, is self-sabotage. So I was thinking a lot about self-sabotaging behavior, where it's like, have you ever experienced this? Like where you are actively doing things that are undermining goals that you're trying to achieve? I was thinking about this. I was like, even in my little internet example, this is something that I was thinking about. Like by rationalizing, by denying, by blaming, I was like, these are all taking actions that are not helping me, build a quality program or connect with people or anything. I was like, why would I do that? It's like self-sabotaging. I'm like, you can do it in many different sort of things. You're trying to, probably most germane to what we are doing here, right? It's like you're trying to move toward a health goal. You have a series of practices and things that are healthy, life-giving, thoughtful practices to do, but then do you do the opposite of that? Walk in the opposite direction. And you say, everything was going well until this point where I started doing the opposite again. And then we walk back, like we walk forward for a while and then we walk back. And then we say, why do we do that? The thing of it is, isn't it? Do you ever get to that point? Like things going well, but there's a point where it turns. And in that moment, see, that's like the critical moment. Whereas like in the moment, we're making a decision to turn around and walk in the other direction. God, I know I have done that so many times. And right in that moment, doesn't it feel like the right thing to do? Like this is what I'm thinking to myself right now. In the moment, doesn't it feel right? I've had thoughts sitting there where I was like, right in the very last thought that I thought was like, man, like things are really going well. Like I'm really moving forward. I'm taking positive action. And then in the very next moment, make the decision where I stop doing that and start going the other way. And I've even have the thought in that moment where I start walking the other direction. I'm like, yeah, I know it. I know I've been moving this way. I know it's been going so good. And isn't this where I should just keep doing that? But then it just feels right to stop, right? That's the struggle. That's the self-sabotage. This is what I've identified personally this week in my own, issues, right? The self-sabotage is there right at that critical moment. Sometimes I've read about self-sabotaging actions that it is like a mental defense mechanism. I don't know if this is really true. But it's like, one way to think about it is like some center in here, right? likes the status quo, right? Some part of our cognitive process just wants things to be stable. It doesn't like change. And change can be very difficult because change is like saying no to the status quo. And it opens up different possibilities. And those possibilities is like it could be better and it could be worse. And some calculation in there is like, why don't we just split the difference and we'll just keep things how they are? And then that's how we avoid something worse. It's like loss aversion, right? People are more afraid of losing something than they are of gaining something of equal value as loss aversion. And so even if things could be much better by changing, because they could also be worse, even if it's not as likely, people will still resist change. It's like you can see some logic to it, right? To protect yourself. Pat is here. So nice to have you here. Thank you for being here. Say, if I can figure this out, I will solve my weight issue. Yeah, I think it's true. I think it is true. And let's keep moving toward it. I think I'm trying as best I can on these sessions, try to get the finger right on the issue, right? Push right onto the place. Yep. So I did a lot of thinking this week about, okay, I've experienced this, right into that place. Why, in that moment, do we make this decision, the turn? Maybe we call it the turn. Why is that? And is it a defense mechanism? Some psychologist comes through, and if you want to enlighten us in even more depth, please do. But in my reading and thinking this week, I came up with two primary ways that self-sabotage is like helping us. And so if we can get into these mindsets, maybe it is the thing that can help you understand it so that you can navigate through it, overcome it, and move forward. The first is that on some subconscious level, we are afraid that if we don't turn around, that we'll actually be successful in what we're trying to do, and that we really don't want that, and that we're really not sure if we can handle it if we were successful in doing it. So we avoid finding out either of those potentially unpleasant things, and we turn around right at that point. We self-sabotage so that we don't have to figure out if the success we're looking for, if it actually isn't what we want, or actually makes things worse, or we can't handle it. And I think that can be a powerful realization. Hey, I'm really happy to hear this, some success after last week. I thought last week was a really powerful session, personally, to speak through those things. I'm really happy to hear you say that. If you missed last week, anybody coming through, give that a watch. I chopped out some key sections of it into separate videos. I've put a couple of those out just because some of the thought processes I really loved, like fasting space as a fire. I made a little video of that. Is a really powerful analogy that is, and it's an analogy, but it's also like, it's just how it is, because our metabolism is always burning and generating heat. It is like a controlled sort of fire burning within us. It's an incredible metaphor. And fire, right, can be also cleansing, and it's part of a natural cycle. Love it. And then a really nice thought I did on breaking food addictions and how we get into that sort of space. So those are great. Okay, so if part one I think of as kind of forward looking, self-sabotage is like protecting us from moving forward to protect us from some sort of emotional experience that we maybe aren't ready for or don't really want. You know, what function is the dysfunction serving, right? If we have some sort of dysfunction in our life, and you say we're making decisions that on some level are actually keeping it going, like, is that also serving us in some way? And like, so some center in there, maybe in there or in here, you know, it doesn't want to let go of it. You want to keep that cycle, is like serving us in some fashion. Letting go of things that don't serve us, very hard to do, right? Especially if it's not cut and dry, right? If it's 100% clear, this is only hurting me and not helping me, easier maybe to let go of it. What if it's not clear? What if it's 60-40, right? Where it's like 60% hurting me and 40% I like it. You know, food issues, right? Out of balance dietary things. Those aren't cut and dry 100% bad, you know? I think those are 60-40 sort of things where it's like really in the big picture, the 60% is like this train is on the wrong track. It's not going in the direction we want. But like 40% is like, but the view's pretty good here, you know? So it's like, I don't want to get off quite yet. Like, okay, so the other side of it, I think if that's looking forward, then the other one is looking backwards, where if we're getting to a point, we're walking down our metaphorical path, we're hitting this turn, it's like, if we keep walking forward, we realize we actually can change. The potential to move in a different direction is real. It's within my control. It's within the realm of possibilities that I could actually do. And I'm actually getting close to doing it. Like with just a few more steps and we're walking. Is that it can take us to a place of regret. If we don't take those steps, the self-sabotage protects us from feeling regret about the fact that we could have always done it all along and didn't. If we don't take those steps, you might think to yourself, I couldn't have done it anyway. And then you're back in the cycle. You start rationalizing. You're back in denial. And we do that whole loop again. That's the turn. This is that critical point. You have to forgive yourself. You have to have grace and acceptance to yourself to realize these are ego tricks, right? These are mental constructs that are being put in here by something, some center in there that is just trying to protect the status quo, right? It's trying to keep everything stable so that you don't have to change. And this rationalization, that's another rationalization. If we don't take the next steps, we don't have to have any regrets, okay? And then that's powerful, right? That's what makes it so difficult. You get through that space by having grace and forgiveness for yourself and recognizing that this is a very difficult situation. And it's actually incredibly powerful to face it, right? To look in the mirror, stop blinding ourselves, look at the reality of the situation, the steps that you have taken to get to this place. When you're getting to that place, you don't just experience this sort of idea at some place that isn't important. You come to these sort of decisions at critically important places. Christy says that that's where you can become complacent and not move either way. Yeah, there would be another space, right? Where you're heading down like our path, and it's like maybe you don't do the full turn and start walking the other direction, but you like just stop, right? And you say, I'm just gonna sit in this space. That's kind of the same. It can be the same. It can be okay, right? Some of that idea can be okay, but complacency itself can become a barrier. Absolutely. Definitely some quote was coming to me. It's almost come to me about the complacency. I had just enough success this week to be at the point of realizing that I'm at the fork in the road where I have to decide if I'm going to keep going or if I'm going to regress back toward comfort. I have a video coming for you this week on this exact thing. So I spent a good chunk of yesterday. I'm making a YouTube short, and I've done a couple of these, chop up some little things into little vertical shorts, like hyper. It's like kind of the opposite of this session. Like this session, I want to be super chill. I try to put like thoughtful music. We have plenty of space. Like just, it's live. A YouTube short where you chop it up, throw graphics is like totally the opposite. But I don't know. It's like attention grabbing. I do also. It's interesting. I'm experimenting with it. Okay, but the short this week that I released somewhere on the week is about choosing comfort over happiness, and it's like 2 minutes of the live from last week that I've hyper chopped up down into like 50 seconds. And it's just basically trying to get into this space that you're saying. Do we get into that place where we're at this critical moment on the precipice, right? Like we've climbed all the way up the mountain. We're standing at the peak, and it's like either we go back or we go forward. Hard to balance, right on the edge. Hard to live on the mountaintop, right? You maybe you can hang out there a while. Is that the complacency? But easiest to head back where you came from. That's the path that you know. There's not uncertainty with it. There's comfort in it, either physically or just mentally, emotionally. Embark on a new course, head in a different direction, uncomfortable because change is uncomfortable. Maybe doesn't mean physically uncomfortable, like pinching, like ow, like something is hurting me, but just the emotional or the mental of it. Like, how do I act in this space? What decisions I make? I have to think a new thought and do a new thing. I was like, and that is adding like an element that is, I think stressful can be the right way. Everything I try to do, help people use a fasting-based process to minimize stress to the greatest extent possible because it's simplifying everything in our life. Less shopping, less cooking, less dishes, less to do, more open space, okay? More space for thoughtful reflection and contemplation. If you're using all these things as taking you in a better way, then that can be stress reducing. That's the only way I really ever want anyone to use fasting, okay? Fasting, I totally recognize, and everyone should recognize, if you're not in a mental space to do it that way, maybe it's not the time for it. If you say, oh my gosh, I'm completely overwhelmed with the situation in my life. I don't have the skills to cope with these things. The only way I know how to cope with it, I have to eat a food and then I feel better. Okay, like you have to know the landscape of your life, and I don't know what it is. And maybe that is what you need to do. Like, I mean, I never tell anybody that a comfort food doesn't work, it does, right? But the question is, do you want to continue using that tool to solve this problem, right? There are other tools, right? And I think the practice of what we're trying to do is build out our collection of tools. Our other practices, using fasting aids. If you can't get there, check out that video I did a couple weeks ago. Use a fasting aid if the pure fasting is too intense. Lean into an exercise process. Exercise your way through a stress. If you can do that, of course, that's a perfectly great thing to do. If you have the mindset to do it, another person says, all that stresses me out. Okay, you don't have to do it, okay? Another person says it's the journaling, it's the therapy, it's the meditation, it's the breathing practice. It's like other people say, I'm just going to focus on eating healthy foods and these things. Like whatever your avenue. Some people say, I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to just totally do everything until I totally overcome it. Jen says, I usually end up feeling worse after I eat the comfort food and then I feel guilty. So this is exactly where I'm going in this little short. That's what I was trying to say. Okay. In the immediate short term, you say, I'm going to have a comfort food. I'm going to feel better, right? And 10 seconds later, you're like, oh, thank God I did that. It's so good. Or you're feeling it. Feels so good. Okay, but half an hour later, right? When your stomach feels like you ate a boat anchor and then you got the energy imbalance because sugar swings are happening and hormones are fluctuating and you don't even feel well. And then you end up in a bad emotional, space. It's hard to feel happy when you're in that sort of situation. It's hard to feel happy then you end up in a situation where not only are you not really that comfortable anymore, but then you're not happy either. And so we end up in this situation, you think, well, I want to be comfortable, but we're not creating an environment where we're ultimately really happy, like on a deep level where we feel like what is the bigger word than happy that I'm trying to get? Just total well-being, wholeness, true health. And that's what we want in our life, to feel in alignment, whereas everything is in alignment, right? I'm living in alignment with my highest values, and I'm making the decisions that are helping me to live truly my best life. Can you look in the mirror and say that I am doing that? And then that's where the challenge and the difficulty comes, because if you, and that's probably a perfect goal, right? Is anybody in that place? I'm not saying that I'm in that sort of place, but that's what we're trying to strive for, right? Comfort is deceiving. The session I did the other week, and I chopped out a mini video on that one too, the false promise of consumption culture. Billions of dollars trying to tell us and convince us that we can purchase happiness. Really what they're selling is comfort. They're selling temporary comfort in many ways. You buy something, you consume it. You say, in the short term, isn't it fun to buy a thing? Or especially with a food product, because then I buy something, you get something, and you eat it and taste it, and it's having physiologic effects in the body, giving us dopamine and hormones, this giving us rewards, say, oh, that was good. But selling that sort of experience, is it bringing long-term meaning, joy, and happiness, and taking it closer to a goal where you say, I'm actually becoming healthier and I'm feeling better? Those things, see, it's easy to step off that path. Always the shiny thing is right there. Always things are so easy to step off. But like to stay on a path that is taking us toward a goal, you say that you really have to be committed to it, right? To walk, if a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, there's like a lot of single steps along the way. And every single time you can you get further than you were before, you can always say, well, look how far down the path I have come now. Then we can become complacent. Then we can say, okay to turn around. I never hammer anybody like that it isn't, because of course, like there's no rules. Like I did that session the other day, no rules for weight loss. And there's just pros and cons and different options, and nobody's locked in to any sort of rigid thing that says you can only walk forward and you can never turn around. You turn around whenever you want, and you can always turn back around. And all that is okay. But then recognizing that it's okay, there's also the reality of what works. And really, when we're in a mindset, we want to build the most powerful mindset that we can. And so if we're looking at the mirror today and we're saying, okay, I see that there's grace and that there's no rules and that I don't have to beat myself up or live with regret, right? This is how we get over all these things. There's just the reality and the potential of change, and tomorrow and the rest of the future is a blank canvas. I can write the new story and I can walk in the direction that I choose. I'm going to stop being manipulated by advertising and money. I'm going to stop being confused by 1,000 people telling me that I can't achieve the goal that I set. And I'm going to take ownership of it. I'm not going to live in denial. I'm not going to blame anybody else. And I'm just going to take the steps that I can take. And knowing that there's no guarantees that anything works on any specific time frame or thing, but to be true to yourself, because this is where I ended up with this thought process over the week. Is that the solution pretty much to any of our problems, but especially to a weight problem? It's inside of us, and it is in fact us. I think, didn't I even put it on the description in this? Like, tell yourself right now, right? I am the solution, right? You identify a problem in your life. Okay. That's the difficult side of it. The positive side of it, then, to go through it, recognizing issues is like the hardest part, right? To stop looking at the sun and look in the mirror. And then to realize you have everything you need. Everything that you need is inside of you. You are a strong and powerful, courageous being, full of strength. And you have done the very difficult work already of turning and looking in the mirror. And you can take a step forward when you get to that space. You can do it. And you know that you can do it. And it's like taking a cold shower. Whereas like, oh, we say, is that not comfortable, right? In the moment. But then you get out and you're like, I am refreshed and alive. Oh man. And that gets the good vibes flowing, you know? And you can step into that space and just realize this sort of mindset, okay? It can be difficult to look back and reflect on all these things. But where I want to turn this whole thing is to just so positive, to realize you don't have to buy anything. You don't have to consume anything. The energy that you need to power you in a weight loss space already inside of you, that's the thing. The problem is the solution. The obstacle is the way. The mountain is the path. You head right through it and you use it up as you walk through it. And then, so that's like a physical reality in the body. It's also a mental and emotional reality. That as you're at that difficult place, that turn that we've described, you realize, okay, Very few people even trying to get to that point. Most people, say they're not having awareness. So to get to that place, you realize, okay, you are building out and developing awareness. It can be freeing if you stay the course. This is absolutely the case. Sometimes I think, okay, who likes rules? No one likes rules. And then you think rules of the road. Okay, if there was never any rules of the road, no agreed upon like anything, everybody just driving everywhere is chaos. Okay. Like we get some basic rules, okay? Creates the process. You drive anywhere you want pretty safely. Okay, so I had the session, no rules. I love that. Okay, so don't call them rules, call it routine. Certain routines say it works. It keeps you in the right direction. The regimen, whatever the word that is not rigid and dogmatic, that is flexible and open. The series of habits and practices that you're walking toward, awareness should be one of those. And awareness of these things that we're talking about. Because like if you're not aware, if you're not paying attention, then you're walking here, you're walking there, like you walking anywhere, right? But if you're aware of what you're doing, and if you have a very specific goal that you're walking toward, a health goal, then you can see where this turn happens, okay? Because then you can at least know. It doesn't mean that you can't turn around, right? If it's too intense, right? It's practicing. Fasting is a practice, I say, okay, absolutely. Something you learn to do. I think a journey of 1,000 miles, okay, this is a process. Most people that I have worked with who have lost a significant amount of weight have done it over at least a year. Like these things, people, you say, I want it to be only 3 months. I was like, well, you can make a lot of progress in 3 months, but you're probably not going to solve the entire problem that you're dealing with in 3 months, okay? So it's like, have a bigger perspective on it. And that can help you to visualize and see, okay, we're making slow, steady steps toward it, taking the pressure down. Then you can see the turn. And at least when you see it, then you can learn from this experience, no matter what happens. It's perfectly legitimate to get to the top of that place. You say, I can't quite handle this right now. I'm just not quite ready. I've described that sometimes as like walking along the river. Like, we're on this path, and then the river is across the path, and we got to ford the stream, right? Like maybe you don't know how deep it is. You don't know if is it cold or whatever. You don't have to jump right in the river. You can walk along the riverbank for a little while. It's okay. And then we're just trying to see all the pitfalls, right? That could turn into complacency, but even then we have grace with ourselves. It's all okay. But when you're ready, right, you can head in the river. You can walk across. You can make it through it. You come out the other side. Yeah, and then it can be freeing. That's what I want for people the most of all. Freeing, not like, to me, a weight loss is a secondary goal. If someone has weight loss, I say wonderful. If that's what they want, is great. It's good for the body, these things. Tell me if you feel this way. Like the biggest level, though, is the emotional freeing of it. If you have been in a cycle, like a dependency cycle with some sort of eating, where the main tool you have to cope with stress is food, and you feel trapped in a cycle because so many people there, whereas like you have to eat, even if you know you don't want to, you have to do it just to balance out the emotional state. And then you end up in this, and in this sort of cycle, right? This is what most people, I think, is fair to say, like this, like the real struggle. To be free of that is what I really want people to help. Even if someone you never reached a weight loss goal you want, which if you're able to do that, then you will, basically. But that's what I want, that people find a place of peace, contentment, happiness, wellness, wholeness, well-being, those sort of things where you describe my life like I'm just in like a really good place, you know, emotionally grounded, centered, and where the weight shakes out, you know, is just becomes kind of a secondary thing. So that is the goal. That is the goal. You are the solution. You have the answer and the potential inside of yourself to it. You need to, I don't even say need to, you have the opportunity to thoughtfully, gently, conscientiously move in that direction. And, you know, one of the things that or concepts that I've put onto this channel a few times is to say, even a video way back, one of the first videos in that core weight loss series, core fasting series, is there a weight loss secret that some people figure out? That video. Okay, a lot of people get in a mindset where they have like a really strong intention. They say, I really want to lose weight, right? A lot of people there, okay? So just getting in the mindset to say, I'm going to make a change, like the other side of it is lots of people get in a very strong mindset and then they adopt practices that don't work also. And the main way, and what I said in that video, is like I've interacted with hundreds and hundreds of people who get fed up and angry, and then they take out that anger in the gym. But the gym is complex, right? Just trying to exercise your way to weight loss, it doesn't work for a lot of people. It can work for some people, and it's also an exceptionally healthy and positive thing to do, to get a lot of exercise. It's just fine. Here's the scenario I want people to avoid, though. I've definitely met with a lot of people who have taken anger out in the gym and done tons of exercise, but they haven't dialed in really on the dietary process, because that's still a huge coping mechanism, right? And so they're trying to overpower the food consumption with tons of exercise. Now, one thing that really happens is they get a lot stronger, okay? Which is great. You say that's great, but people don't really want to be stronger, you know? Someone is like bulking up, and, you know, I've even had it people like gaining weight because they're adding muscle, but they're not fixing their emotional connection to food, and then they are even angry. I mean, this is more common, especially with women, I think. Tell me if you would agree. A woman is bulking up and getting ripped, and then they're like, but not also losing any weight. And then that's like really frustrating. I've talked with so many people like that. To me, I want everybody as strong as possible. I love it. Exercise, please, to the greatest extent that you want. But if you're trying to lose weight, if you've gotten yourself to this space, you're up at this turn point on the mountain, I encourage people to dial in on a dietary process first. Don't try to exercise to such a degree that you have to burn through all of the food intake and all the energy you want to lose. If people hurt themselves that way. My thoughtful suggestion for your consideration: lean into the dietary process first. Make sure you're eating healthy foods. Make sure you're avoiding processed foods first. Once, and especially the emotional part of it, where what are the tools that you are using to cope with the stress? We all have stress. Taylor Swift is like, is she a billionaire yet? She's got tons of stress. Look at the dark lyrics. Oh my God. We're never going to reach a state where we've freed ourselves from stress coming at us, but we can reach a state where we free ourselves from pathological coping mechanisms to it. And so when we have built out the awareness and we see how we're using food and we see the other avenues that are available to us, then we can enter into that critical space, use all of these other tools to pass through it. Then, do you see, that is what is taking the pressure off. Then we start introducing some amount of fasting space, because I say, let fasting do the work, right? You don't have to burn yourself out in the gym. You can let the body function in this open space. You teach yourself how to do that gently over time. You realize, oh, I open up this space to the body says, yes, this is great. We can handle this. At first it was hard, but now it's getting easier. I never tell anybody it's easy, but the goal is to have it be easier and become easy and not be a struggle. You teach yourself to do that over some amount of time. And once you find a place like this is my progression that I go through. Once you are finding that sort of space where we're dealing, maybe we don't solve it all at once, but we're improving, we're taking steps with our relationship with food. We're building out practices to help us cope with emotional spaces without eating. And we are able to bring healthy foods in an appropriate time, have fasting space to let the body burn through that excess. That is an incredible environment to add exercise onto, okay? You start thoughtfully adding exercise on top of a space like that, and that's like, that can really, really move somebody forward in a powerful way. But that's the perspective. To do it the other way around almost never works. To try to exercise so intensely that you can burn through all the extra energy and then replace the emotional effect that we're getting from food with some exercise process. Maybe it can work for a long time until you twist your ankle and you can't exercise anymore, and all of a sudden all you can do is sit and you're watching TV. And then I've seen that happen to people, is like they're trying to rehab, but they never got the eating in the right place, and then they undo like 2 years worth of work while they're trying to recover from an injury or something. So it's much more stable. This is what we want. We want to get to a stable, grounded place where it's like, it's not taking much work to maintain this, you know? Like we're passing through this space in a really, without struggling. That's what I want. I don't want anyone to struggle. One of those first videos, I said, don't think of struggling to lose weight. Think of just being open to it. And that's a really, really great mindset. Pat says, these Sunday resets are very helpful. Thank you. Thank you for being here. They're really, I am really enjoying doing it. So I'm just happy to have you here, and happy if there's benefit from it. So I'm really happy about that. We'll keep a good thing going. I love doing it. I do love doing it. So if, yeah. Grab a coffee or tea in the morning, create a pleasant space. You do this any day in the week. And of course, I put this on the weekend as an idea that is like, okay, easier for a lot of people to create some open space, harder during the week if you got to get to work, or maybe you have to, work Sundays. I've worked plenty of Sundays in the hospital, So we're all in a different situation, but maybe you have to get up at 4:30 and get off to the job or whatever. You say, I can't just get up and chill and have a coffee. Okay, but you can take the mindset. To me, this sort of a space is like practicing the mindset of, what we're trying to get to. Finding contentment in a space. Okay, so, I've tried to be intentional about all these things, right? We're here in the morning. It's a fasting space. We can be fasting. I'm fasting. We have a black coffee. We're trying to make a space that's as thoughtful as possible. This is what you try to do in any day, regardless of your circumstances. You got to go to some stressful job. Okay, what are the things that you can do? You have to deal with stressful people. You say, I'm not working, but I've got, we all have the stress flowing from different avenues. What are the things that you can do to create the environment to make it as easy as possible for yourself to take that next step or to stay on the path? Very difficult, of course, in general, to stay on a path when it's like all the off ramps have big neon signs, like advertising, like just get off the path. You'll be so much more comfortable in the short term. Truth, right? There's always a bit of truth in every deception, right? So that'll be this week. See if you like my little short. Maybe I'm thinking Tuesday. I'll get it done. A few things to finish up. Choosing long-term happiness over short-term comfort this is the irony or the paradox, is ultimately the thing that will make us more comfortable. It circles back around. In the fire video from last week here, was it that one? One of these ones. I was talking about. Oh no, it was this one on overcoming the food addictions. And I said, no DUI for chocolate cake, right? It's kind of a joke. Where in the session last week, I was kind of joking about how, we kind of make light of this struggle that people have with food, but it's really powerful. It's just as powerful as addictions to anything, I think, cigarettes or any hard drug or anything. People struggle because it's chemical, right? It's not, people turn all of these things, alcohol and everything, into some sort of moral failing. And this is where the judgment comes from, right? In that session we did, is obesity a disease? They say, well, if we call it a disease, then people don't have to feel like it is some sort of failure. But then what we realize, all these things are the same things. They're all hitting these cycles in the body and the brain. And it's just, one person's nicotine is another person's sugar. And so when we just start to realize, these cycles, this is what takes, we got to get out of all this judging sort of mindset. It has nothing to do with that. It's just like, how do we get ourselves in a mental space to move away from it? Whatever the thing we struggle is, we all struggle with these issues. And so what I was saying in there, you think about just the disability and discomfort that comes from degenerative arthritis, osteoarthritis. And of course, weight is associated with that. If the knees and hips and back and all these things, is all this pressure for decades, and it caused a lot of pain and discomfort. And say, we think, well, I want to choose comfort, okay, but then in the long term, the choice of choosing comfort, how uncomfortable is it making people? This is a cycle that we want to break and bring around. So those are some thoughts of the day. It's so nice to have you here. I hope you have a great week. Really appreciate all the thoughts and comments here and the discussion. Wish you the very best. If you have further thoughts during the week, let me know. Enjoy the short when it comes out. Let me know what you think of that. And I will see you back here next Sunday. Be well, everybody.